In this class, we'll discuss about PRI, that means PanchayatRaj Institute, Cooperatives, NGOs or VOs, Voluntary Organizations. In case of PanchayatRaj Institution, it is not a new concept for India. Actually, from ancient time in our Indian rural system, panchayat are there, and actually this panchayat mainly maintain the rules and regulation, all the things of that particular community. And during the British rule, British government abolished this system of PanchayatRaj institution. And after independence, when government introduced the rural development programs through community development program and NES in 52 CDP, 53 NES, and there the main point is that overall, when the overall rural areas will develop, then automatically there will be development in the country. And for this development process, one important approach was the people's participation. However, after a few years, when mass expectation was not received through CDP and NES. Then in 1957, a committee was formed under Voluntary Organizations, and the committee was entrusted to evaluate the CDP and NES program. Why success is not coming in the expected way? And during the evaluation process, it was found that in CDP and NES, the main point, that is people's participation, was very poor. And people's participation, that was the main approach for CDP and NES. And therefore, in rural areas, they emphasize that people's participation should be come, and it will not come directly by CDP or NES. And because of that, Voluntary Organizations Committee, they introduce or suggest a concept that is called democratic decentralization. And this democratic decentralization means here the power and authority are coming to the grassroots level. It is not centralized. And for that system, they introduced the term PanchayatRaj Institute or system based on the earlier history. And at present, the PanchayatRaj institution, this is not similar with the earlier system, but their role is almost similar. And Voluntary Organizations Committee, they suggest three-tier system. One is Gram Panchayat, Panchayat Samiti at block level, and Jila Parishad at district level. In ancient India, only the Gram Panchayat is present. But for democratic decentralization process, Voluntary Organizations, that committee recommend three-tier. One at village level, one at block level, another at district level. After that, first this institute, PRI institute, was accepted by Rajasthan, and at that time it was not compulsory that all the states should introduce this PanchayatRaj institution. And in PanchayatRaj institution, the main function of rural development, that is done at village level. And so the Gaon Panchayat is a very important component in case of PanchayatRaj institution. After that, again it was observed that though PanchayatRaj Institute was adopted by most of the state, but the functioning of the panchayat was not proper. And because of that, again another committee, that is Ashok Mehta committee, was formed, and they recommended two-tier PanchayatRaj system. They abolished the middle tier, that is block level. And after that, though these changes were made, but still the Panchayat Institute, they could not provide the main process of rural development. And here the main point was that though the PanchayatRaj Institute was adopted by India, but it was not a constitutional body. That means some state may or may not accept these things, and they have no such power and authority. And because of that, in 1992, through 73rd Amendment of Indian Constitution, specific roles and responsibilities are given to each level of panchayat. And again, the PanchayatRaj Institute was made into three tiers, that is village panchayat, block panchayat, and Jila Parishad. And only after 73rd Amendment Act, and it was implemented in 1993, the panchayat, they get the actual real power and authority. All of you know about the election process of PanchayatRaj system, and because of since members, president, all are elected by the voters of the respective area, so it is called as democratic decentralization. Entire process is democratic. In case of cooperative, the main definition is it is an independent association of women and men united voluntarily to meet their common social, cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. It is an organization where people are joined voluntarily to work for the society, for their need, all these type of things, and entire organization is controlled by democratic way. The main aim of cooperative societies is to provide a tangible benefit to all people who face similar problems. That means those people who are facing the same problem individually, they cannot solve the problem, and because of that they form the cooperatives through mutual understanding and cooperation to solve their problem. The cooperative societies plays an important role in socio-economic development of the country. Can you cite some example of cooperative societies which are playing a major role in Indian rural development? Amul and Sugarcane Growers Association of Maharashtra, Grape Growers Association, all these things. Even in case of Assam, particularly for the brass metal cottage industries, for livelihood security of those artisans, they form Assam Cooperative Tohar Hongda Limited, because individually all the artisans are poor, they cannot solve their problem, but through this cooperative organization, now they can solve most of their problem. NGOs and voluntary organizations. NGOs is a buzzword now, but actually there are some specific definition in case of NGOs, and the NGOs came into limelight for the rural development programs because it is observed that most of the rural development programs implemented by different government at different country, these are not properly successful. And in case of rural development programs, the main approach is participation. And to stimulate the people's participation, it is not possible for the government functionaries to mobilize the entire society. And because of that, NGOs and voluntary organizations, these were welcome for the rural development program because they are dedicated person, they join voluntarily for the social service, and because of that, they can easily mobilize the people towards development process. Voluntary organization is an agency, organized or unorganized, structured or unstructured, which work for the welfare of a community in any given area of its population. Means they can join in a group or organization, and that particular organization will fix the members of the organization, they will fix where they will work based on their willingness. They will work, and because of that, though there are different voluntary organizations, their activities are different. And voluntary organizations, these are also non-political, secular, non-profit making, non-governmental and philanthropic organizations which operates through programs and projects. There may be some organizations which may involve in some economic activities, but the profit should not be shared among the members. Instead of that, that profit should be invested for the welfare of the society. It should not be a profit-making organization. It is a non-profit making organization. And these NGOs and voluntary organizations, if they were work properly, they get some programs and projects from different developmental organization, government, and they implement those things at their jurisdiction. Sometimes government shares some of the activities to those organizations, particularly the people's mobilization part, so that the government can easily work for the society. NGO. There are numbers of NGOs, but active NGOs are very less. NGOs are at international level, national level, state level, local level, based on their capacity. These are also not governmental organizations, and they are registered organization, and if the organization involved in the social welfare activities, then this type of NGOs get the scope from government to implement different rural development program. And in case of NGOs, their activities are also different. It is not that all the NGOs, they will work for the rural development, but main approach is same, that is social welfare, and different organizations, they work in different areas. Here, these are some famous NGO at international level. All these organizations, they are not directly involved in rural development program, but their activities helps in the development of the society. And some of the NGOs at international level, they are work to that extent that they even receive Nobel Peace Prize. Can you mention any one organization, NGO, which received Nobel Peace Prize? Red Cross Society. What is the special features case of voluntary organizations or NGO. Their actions are voluntary, innovativeness is there. That means in a different way they act for the society. They are dedicated person, and because of that they voluntarily involved in the program. All people of the society, they are not involved in this type of activities. Always flexible in the approach, because in case of rural development or social development, if there is no flexibility, then it is very difficult to work properly, and therefore it is flexible. Their motivation level is very high. They are not doing the work for the profit. When society is developed, that is their satisfaction. And since it is flexible, so the procedures are also less. With minimum procedural practice, they can do this thing. There is no red tapeism of bureaucracy. Those people, organizations, they have some sort of natural capabilities, and because of that, they are joined in a particular organization. Who can do what type of things? Based on that, those people will join or form that type of NGOs or voluntary organization. And since they are part of the society and they understand the need and problem of the people very well than the external person, and because of that, they can easily implement the program to solve this thing. There are some other functions of NGOs or voluntary organizations, like facilitating communication between people and government. In case of rural development program, there is a gap between the client and the government, and that communication gap is fulfilled by NGO person, helping to identify and voice community needs. They work with the community, work with the society, and help them to identify their needs, and they echo their voice to the government sector. And nowadays, different NGO, they are also praise these things even to sense the policy. Supporting participation and group formulation. These are very, very important thing in case of developmental activities. And group formation stage, that is not an easy one. At least 6 months is required to form a group. But in case of government organization, they have not that type of sufficient time to do these things. And in that case, they take the help of NGOs, organization to form the group. They also help in giving training and building the capacity of community group. Only formation of a group is not sufficient. That group should be sustained. For the sustainability of the group, they also train the group members, building their capacity so that they can maintain the group. Channelizing resources at the community level. Many times what happens, there is a problem and the people can't solve these things because of lack of resources, and they have lack of information on this type of things, where from this type of resources they can collect. And here the NGO, they're channelizing those things from where, what type of resources you can receive or what should be done to get this type of resources. And by this way, the people of the rural society, they can develop their areas, develop their standard of living, all these things. What is the common problem in case of Indian NGO? Most of the cases, it is observed that the NGOs, these are organized or established by some political person only to harvest his profit or popularize his political scenario, all this type of thing. And these are not actually a dedicated NGO. And many NGOs, they have lots of objectives in such a way that they can get the fund from different organizations. But in those cases also, that NGOs are actually not dedicated to work for the society, but only to obtain the funds from the government, and this is become a profit-making organization. So these are some specific limitations in case of NGO in India. Overall, the PanchayatRaj Institute, NGOs, and voluntary organizations and cooperatives, they involve in rural development programs, and if they function well, then the programs are also successful. Nowadays, it is made compulsory that in case of selection of beneficiaries in rural development program, that should be done through Panchayat, so that actual beneficiaries will be identified and they will get the benefit. This is in a nutshell about PRI, NGO, voluntary organizations, and cooperatives in relation to rural development.